Oblivion Remastered might have been the worst kept secret in gaming, with rumors of its existence circulating for what seemed like years. But, despite all of that, it still feels a bit surreal to be finally playing this game myself. Oblivion Remastered has more or less completely taken over my life the past couple of weeks, and today, I want to talk all about it. But first, as usual, I gotta say thanks for clicking on my video. I finally hit 500 subscribers with my last video, and I couldn't have done it without each and every one of you. If you're new here, please be sure to give this video a like and consider hitting that subscribe button. Gunning for that 1000 milestone next, and I appreciate any and all help in getting there. Now, let's talk some Elder Scrolls. First, I think it's important to provide my personal experience with the original Oblivion. I have very faint memories of dabbling in it back in the day, but I don't really think I played it for any more than a handful of hours. I think at the time I picked it up, my gamer brain was just a little too young and undeveloped to be able to handle an RPG of that scope and size. However, like many other people my age, my real jumping on point for this series came with the next installment, Skyrim. Not to sound hyperbolic, but I think in some ways Skyrim legitimately changed my life. One of my fondest gaming memories of all time is getting the game one Christmas morning and then disappearing into my room until dinner time, just completely and utterly absorbed in its world. To this day, Skyrim remains on my all-time pantheon of video games and is possibly my most replayed game ever. To me, it is the ultimate comfort game and a title that I will simply never get tired of. As many people watching this know though, having such a deep love for Skyrim can be rough at times. Sure, the game has gotten constant re-releases and endless mod support since its release almost 15 years ago, but man, I don't think there's any game I want more than an actual true successor. Elder Scrolls 6 is truly going to hit like nothing else when it finally comes out, but since that still seems like an unfathomably long time away, a remaster of the game that came before Skyrim is the next best thing. This is why my hype for this long rumored Oblivion remake has been so intense. And finally, now that it's here, I can say without hesitation that it is certainly living up to the hype. For people like me who fell in love with the series with Skyrim, but didn't experience much of Oblivion, this is basically like getting a brand new 500 plus hour Elder Scrolls game to get lost in. And man have I been lost in it. From the second I stepped out of the sewers into the lush green world of Cyrodiil, I knew that I was in for one hell of a time. Mechanics and control-wise, the game feels incredibly similar to Skyrim, and being able to experience that sort of game again has been the ultimate mix of comfort, joy, and nostalgia. In fact, in some ways, some of the mechanics and features actually feel like an improvement over Skyrim. As someone who typically likes to build a magic melee hybrid character, I've been loving the shortcut wheel the game utilizes, as well as the wealth of different spells on display here. The combat is still incredibly simple for the most part, with you mostly just moving around and clicking buttons until all the enemies die, but all these years later, I still love it despite its simplicity. And of course, that sweet, beautiful Bethesda jank is all too present here as well. In fact, it's better than ever in this title. I guess I never realized how much of a jump in voice acting quality the series underwent from Oblivion to Skyrim, because man, the voice acting in this game is flat out terrible at times. And while in most other games that would almost certainly be an indictment, I found it weirdly endearing here. Call me a Bethesda fanboy or a homer if you must, but I'm loving the ridiculously corny voice acting in this game. Outside of Patrick Stewart having some lines in the opening, you can tell that the same 6 or 7 people voice basically all the characters here, and while some performances are mostly unremarkable, some of them are certified hilarity. One of my personal favorite performances is Archmage Travin, who gives an incredibly wooden and emotionless performance. It's particularly funny in the context of the Mages Guild questline though, as oftentimes he's talking about some pretty heavy stuff. You know, like the most evil necromancer of all time returning with the goal of committing mass genocide on all the mages. You would think that conversation topic would warrant some fear or emotion, but nah, Travin talks to you about all of this as if he's telling you what items he needs picked up from the grocery store. And he does it all with a very eerie, smile-like expression on his face. In any other game, this would be incredibly off-putting to me, but wrap it up in the Bethesda package and it becomes extremely charming for some reason. To be honest, there have been multiple times throughout my playthrough that I've legitimately laughed out loud at a bad line delivery or a corny piece of dialogue. But I think it's a testament to the game that despite all of that, I'm still really enjoying a lot of the story here. As is the case with any Bethesda game, I've only done so much in the main quest line as I've constantly been pulled away to other things, but the main story has kept me engaged and interested. The main premise of the Emperor being assassinated by a mysterious cult, combined with what are basically gates to hell opening all over the world, is some pretty compelling stuff, and dare I say I'm finding all of it to be more engaging than the main Dragonborn storyline from Skyrim. We'll see if they stick the landing, but I've heard good things about the ending. The faction storylines have been fun as well, and I've been absolutely loving the ability to consume new content and stories with factions like the Dark Brotherhood and the Thieves Guild that I loved so much in Skyrim. It truly does feel like coming home after a long time away. And of course, it's impossible to talk about this remaster without mentioning the overhauled visuals. For the most part, this game looks great. Sure, some of the characters look a bit off, and the visuals obviously aren't going to be on par with other AAA games coming out in 2025, but for someone who has spent hundreds of hours with Skyrim over the last decade, the visuals on display here are a colossal leap. Textures and lighting look fantastic. Sunsets are gorgeous, and there were many times during my travels across the land that I had to stop just to pan the camera around and take in the beauty of the world. Finally being able to play an Elder Scrolls game with at least somewhat modern graphics is like getting a glimpse of what a beta version of the eventual Elder Scrolls 6 is going to look like, and I am here for it. Unfortunately, this does lead to the game's biggest flaw: performance. This game runs like ass. I've been playing on my PS5 Pro, and the game having the Pro Enhanced tag in the PlayStation Store feels like one of the biggest marketing lies I've ever seen. In no way is this game enhanced for the PS5 Pro, and if it is, then I would really hate to see how it runs on the base model. Frame drops and stutters abound when you're out exploring the open world, and as beautiful as that world can be, the level of immersion takes a hit when you're witnessing extreme stutter or pop-in. To the game's credit, this happens mostly when you're out in the overworld. The game runs almost flawlessly when you're in a dungeon or a smaller settlement, but it really struggles when you're out in the grassy plains of Cyrodiil. And considering that the best part of an Elder Scrolls game is getting lost in the giant world it has to offer, this is less than ideal. But, with all that being said, and I realize I'm going to sound once again like a massive Bethesda mark here, the performance really hasn't hampered my enjoyment all that much. And that's surprising, because like I've said in previous videos on my channel, I've become a bit of a frame snob in recent years. Inconsistent frame rates and stutters drive me insane, to the point where if it happens too often, it can seriously hurt my enjoyment of basically any game. But for whatever reason, it really hasn't bothered me here. And that's saying something, considering this game has one of the most inconsistent frame rates of anything I've played in recent memory. Perhaps it's because this Elder Scrolls Bethesda formula is so nostalgic that it transports me back to a time where I didn't care or know the first thing about frame rates. Do I wish it performed better? Of course. And I'm hopeful that future patches will eventually iron out some of these rough edges. But for now, I've been able to brush off these performance issues as minor annoyances, and it really has not affected my experience too much. And I hope that other people are able to do the same. Because whether you're someone like me who is experiencing Oblivion for the first time, or you're someone who sunk hundreds of hours into the original, this is a remake worth playing, and a world worth getting lost in. We still have a long way to go in 2025, but when this year is over, I have a hard time imagining that Oblivion won't be my most played game. It is truly something special.